Welcome to I'm Not Joking, the podcast where a behavioral scientist examines what it's like to live a humorous life. Glimpse into the lives of the funniest people in entertainment, business, and science as your host, Dr. Peter McGraw, explores their habits, motivations, and secrets to success. Get ready to fire up your brain and your funny bone. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to I'm Not Joking, the podcast that looks at the lives of funny people. I'm Peter McGraw. Today's guest is Billy Merritt. Billy has been a performer, teacher, and director with the UCB Theater since it first opened in New York. He's a founding member of improv groups The Swarm and The Stepfathers in New York and The Smokes in Los Angeles. His TV credits include Reno 911, Law and Order, Workaholics, Happy Endings, Weeds, Parks and Rec, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Billy was the host of Uncorked, a food, wine, and travel show. Welcome, Billy.
Welcome. Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is great. If you weren't working in comedy, what would you be doing?
I feel I'd be owning a sports bar in Florida about now.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I was doing. I was a restaurant manager. Kind of started later on in life. Like, I would say in my late 20s, I started taking acting lessons and comedy and doing stuff like that. Before then, I was a franchise manager where we opened up restaurants from city to city. I grew up in Florida, so I figured the Florida sports bar scene is where I would have been.
Is that right? Do you feel wistful about that alternative life?
Just came back from a 2-week vacation over the holidays, and I'm okay. I'm all right. I will say this. I am ready and prepared to retire and go back to Florida, and I know how to do it.
Okay.
I think when I hit my 70s and 80s, I'm going to be a great early bird diner. That's kind of my life now. I love that stuff.
Are you an early riser now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm doing all the old man stuff now. I'm making that. Actually, I'm making the pre-old man stuff when you start noticing you're doing the old man stuff and you start telling people that you're doing it.
I've got a few of those little things.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, managing a restaurant is hard.
Yeah.
That's hard. That's hard. I mean, comedy's hard.
Yeah.
Managing a restaurant is hard.
It's multitasking all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to be thinking two things at the same time. You have to put on a smiley face no matter what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Sounds a lot like improv.
It is very much like improv. I think that's why I kind of bled into that. It's kind of probably why I veered towards improv as opposed to stand-up. Mm-hmm. You know, when I had the choice and I was doing both, I found improv to be more of a team effort, and I enjoy working with teams a little bit more.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what's fascinating is where you decide to live.
Yeah.
Can have these unintended consequences.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So being in New York, you were in New York, you were working in New York.
Yeah.
And so if you want to get trained in improv, when you did this,
yes,
there were
that was the big thing.
Of places. There's 3 places in the world you could get it, right?
Yeah, exactly. When we were I started theater down in Florida, and that's where I kind of met my improv wife, Michael Delaney, who I've known for 25, almost 30 years. And we kind of got together. We were friends in theater school who both loved Second City.
Okay.
And SCTV and weed. And we created our own improv group for the first time. And it got to the point where we're actors, but we really preferred improv.
Okay.
And we were told by our teacher, you got to get out of West Palm Beach. There's really so much you can do there.
Yeah.
So we had the big discussion. Are we going to go to Chicago and study improv? Or are we going to go to New York and study acting and improv?
Okay.
And New York was really where we wanted to go. Chicago is where we knew we should go, because that's where the improv schools are that are famous. We got an in at a school in New York, which made us make the decision. It was called the National Improv Theater. And this is in the mid-90s. So we moved from West Palm. Our whole group, we played down south. I'd say 4 of us moved up to New York.
That's great.
I want to say all in the same van, but not really. We got involved with this theater who accepted us with open arms. They were a little weird, and we just figured that's New York. It's great. They gave us jobs right away, selling classes for ESL. We think this is the greatest thing in the world. They started teaching us. And because we were working, we're getting classes for free. Everything was going really well. And then I'd say about 3 months in, we found out they were Scientologists.
Oh, I see.
And nothing wrong with that. They're very well organized and they taught a good class, But we found after a year, it was like, this isn't for us.
Yeah, I
we
guess,
kind of need to move on.
This is the first Scientology story I've heard about New York City.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't
It's out here in LA pretty strong.
It's very, well, obviously, right across the street from UCB Franklin is that big.
Exactly.
It's a big house building kind of thing.
Celebrity Center.
Yeah,
that's what they call them.
Right.
And my experience of that is not bitterness, but okay, now I get it. I know what you guys are about, and that's not what I'm about.
Right.
So I moved on. We all moved on and kind of were on our own for a while until UCB moved into town. I would think that's 96, 97.
Okay.
And we were thirsting for a style of improv called long form improvisation. Mm-hmm. We were wanting to do this form called the Herald, and we couldn't find anybody to teach it in New York, or the people that we didn't really know what they were teaching. Then the UCB moved here and they just blew up. They were like a bomb. And everybody started taking their workshops.
I mean, I have a bias. I'm a UCB guy.
Yeah. I can see you got the UCB sweatshirt and the hat.
Yes. I've only taken 101 and 201 as an intensive here, but I've like dabbled a tiny bit with like one-offs, drop-ins in various places.
Sure.
But I just, it's, you guys do it well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so from the handbook to the approach to the classes to the focus on comedy.
Yeah.
Which I think is fun, which I didn't know that there were differences among the different styles of teaching in terms of to degree that
absolutely
that comedy is at the forefront versus
I would even say within the UCB there are different styles.
Oh, tell me
but
more.
We all agree on game.
I see.
The game of the scene is what connects us all. Mm-hmm. And I always tell my students when I first learned, I learned through the UCB4, Amy, Matt, and Ian, and I took multiple workshops with each of them until they turned into classes. And what I was amazed at is they come from different approaches. Their comedy is totally different. I feel Matt Besser is more of a...
Can we stop for just a second? Because I think this is... I think the average person listening doesn't know the background.
Yeah.
So UCB was founded by 4 people.
Exactly.
And can you tell a little bit about the origin story?
Yes. Matt Besser, Ian Roberts, Amy Poehler, and Matt Walsh. The forgettable one, Matt Walsh. They started in Chicago. That was actually a much bigger group. Horatio Sands and Adam McKay, I believe, was also
is that right?
in UCB when they were in Chicago. They all came up through, I guess they met at I.O., and they became a sketch group. They weren't an improv group, they were a sketch group, but they were all parts of different improv groups. And they came to New York their goal was to get a sketch show on Comedy Central. From what I understood, in order for them to pay rent, they started doing workshops, and they had no idea how thirsty New York was. And it blew up to the point where it's like, well, let's just keep doing that. And it just kind of turned into this monster. People just kept commenting because it's such a logical approach to how to find what's funny in a scene. Mm-hmm. So what I discovered by watching them is here we have 4 different people with completely different approaches to comedy, yet they all agree on one thing, and that is the game of the scene, what's funny of that scene.
Okay.
And they build out of it.
Right.
I tend to say more in class now, it's more organic or more premise-based. Take a word and just go would be an organic version of improv, whereas premise-based would be maybe hear a monologue and develop ideas from that monologue and honor that in your scenes.
This is really terrible to say, but when I can't say that I shine as an improviser, but man, those monologues, that's where I feel most comfortable.
Telling monologues or getting ideas off of monologues?
Telling monologues. Only because I'm a professor.
Yeah.
I give talks.
Yeah.
It's just something I do all the time. I can keep it short. I feel very comfortable doing monologues. Everything else, I'm still.
Have you done storytelling?
I have never, only around the dinner table with friends.
I find that's, I started doing storytelling shows. Obviously the Moth, I've not been involved with the Moth, but that's on the list of things to do. Mm-hmm. And I find them challenging and a lot more fun than stand up and rewarding once you've told that story on stage.
Yeah, I bet
you know what
so.
I mean? Yeah. And I did it because my monologues aren't good. My monologues are very fast.
Okay.
Or I don't know when to stop talking.
I see.
So I had to get better at it.
Yeah, the whole process of, improv is, the thing about improv that I like so much, I was actually just commenting on how I'm kind of overwatching stand-up as a scientist who studies comedy.
Sure.
I'm kind of too analytical.
Yeah.
I can turn it off with improv enough. You know, I know the rules now.
Yeah.
And I know what a long form game is supposed to, or long form scene is supposed to do.
Yeah.
But I can sit back and enjoy it and kind of
not worry about the process.
Exactly. As much kind of a thing. That said, is you guys make it look easy. And
good. We should.
Yeah. And I think, so you have these four kind of people with different approaches.
Yeah.
They start to formalize the sort of UCB method, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And then this turns into
the theater itself.
A theater, and then also a school in New York, and a school here in Los Angeles, which you instruct at.
I teach here and perform. Also, the other reason why they wanted to open up that theater is because at that time, I tell the kids this all the time. In my day, if you wanted to do a show, you had to rent a cabaret space or you had to do a bringer show, which means you couldn't try stuff out. You couldn't allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to fail on stage unless you're doing stand-up open mics or something like that. But as far as sketch show or improv, there was no such thing in the 90s that I knew of.
Like a safe place to experiment.
Yeah. And that's what their theater was when it first opened.
I see.
And I think that's what really said, this is my home. That's a home theater. And I think that's what drew a lot of people. And they're redoing that now with the Inner Sanctum. They're kind of bringing that back.
Oh, is this over at Sunset?
Yes, at Sunset.
Yes.
It's like the Sunset is the complex. It's classrooms, writers' rooms and conference rooms and offices. And then downstairs, the main theater. And then there's a coffee shop on the side that opens up into a big open cavernous. Not a great space, but a good space.
I get it.
And the idea there is, and I tell my students, it's like, you're paying for this class, but you're also paying for the chance to get on stage. Every night of the week, there's either an improv jam, a storytelling jam, open mic, open sketch, a chance to get up there and, fuck it up a little bit.
Yeah, it makes sense. I have to tell you, doing 101 and 201 as a intensive.
Yeah.
So, I'm professor.
Yeah, but what is that like? Yeah, that's a lot of information back to back.
I have to tell you that I loved it. Rarely have I slept that well.
What does that mean?
Well, because, one is it's 3 hours.
Yeah.
For 4 days a week.
Yeah.
You're on your feet, you're moving, you're using your brain.
Yeah.
You're active, and you're also laughing a lot.
Yes.
You're smiling, you're laughing. There's this camaraderie that you develop pretty quickly with that group. It's play.
Yeah.
Right? Improv is play.
It is.
It's a game, right? We talk about, you use the word game, what I mean? And it's like, whether it be playing sports or just making up games in life as a kid.
Yeah.
And as adults, we improvise a lot, but we don't improvise in a fun way as much as we could benefit from.
Yeah.
So I loved it. It stretched me. I laughed a lot, way more than I laugh a decent amount already, but you know what I mean?
Sure.
And then also, I like being the old guy in the room.
Ah, that's great.
It's a pretty young group.
Yeah.
For those daytime, like these are often 20-somethings, a lot of actors.
Yeah.
Wannabe actors/actors.
Yeah.
There's an energy. These are people who are chasing their dreams. They're ambitious. They're creative.
Yeah.
They're interesting. And so I loved it. I think it's great.
When I teach, and I do teach those 101 intensives, and coming from New York, I was so full of myself because I'm a fantastic teacher. It's like I would only teach advanced study, and then it's like there's no advanced studies. Like, what do you got? I'll teach it. And now I think every teacher must teach 101 and 201.
Why is that?
Because it makes you get back to your roots.
Okay.
Number one. Number two, people in 101 in LA are talented. Okay. They're not that New York, they're not talented, but there are actors and just actors and comedians that are really good at what they do, but they want to learn a certain style. So I feel the classes are elevated here. I never had a bad 101 class. Well, that's not true, but let's just say
for the most part. Yeah, you're right about that. Like there were people in the class I was like, "Whoa, that dude has it. Wow, that woman has it." Like, they're I
have to ask. So, was there an Australian in the class?
I don't think there was an Aussie. No,
what? There's always one Aussie.
There's always
in an intensive.
Yeah, what's really funny was my 201, and I think I may take the 201.
That's
over.
the hard class. Yeah.
I may take it over because I'm coming here for a sabbatical next year,
yeah.
and I'm gonna do the full slate of UCB.
Oh,
I'm
good.
gonna take a sketch writing class, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to do 301 and 401.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But I think I'll retake 201.
And why is that?
It'll have been a couple years
Yeah.
since I've done it. I also think so in 201 you teach game.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted for the listeners to talk a little bit about game.
Yeah.
To me, I feel like that is it's like shooting in basketball.
Yeah.
Like if you want to become an elite basketball player, it's very difficult to do it if you can't shoot.
Yeah.
You can do it, but it's very hard. I feel like if you want to become an elite improviser,
Yeah.
it helps to be to get game.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And so to me, doing it a second time, I don't feel like it's a step back in any way.
It's also unfair to game. It took me 2 years to feel comfortable enough with game to not think about it and just play it.
Okay.
And we're asking people in 2 weeks or in an 8-week course to get game, or they feel that they must know it by then. It's like, no, you've got the idea of what the game of the scene is, but it's going to take a while for it to get into your system.
So talk about what game is.
Game is and this is something I always ask every class. What do you guys think game is?
Okay.
And they're all right in a sense.
Can I give you my?
Yes. Yeah.
So I believe game is the unusual thing with the justification.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's a biggie.
Okay.
That's something that I push. And I'll say this in every single class, no matter what level, I'll say this in every single class because you've got to hear it over and over again. And that is, a good scene has a base reality. Somewhere in America, this is happening right now. That's how you know this is truthful. And look at what's going on in America. You have a tremendous amount of freedom in your base reality. It doesn't have to be boring. It has to be real so that the unusual can appear out of that.
Yes.
Then that has to be called out. So everybody, you, your scene partner, everybody on your team and the audience all know that this is what's the unusual thing.
Okay.
Then you justify.
I want to ask this. So you say it has to be called out.
Yes.
So what do you mean by that?
Another term is framing the game.
Okay.
We were using that example in the book. This is what the unusual part of this scene is about. This is what our comedy is going to be built on.
And so so let's say I recognize this but 101 teaches people how to do base reality.
Yeah.
201 teaches you how to identify the unusual thing and justify
Call it and justify it. Yeah.
So when you say identify it, does it mean actually going? It seems does it have
It's
to
different
be
every single scene.
Okay.
That's a good question because it's not because I say it in that order, but it's not in that order. So basically, it's base reality, unusual, call out the unusual, justify. If that, then what else? If that, then what else? If that, then what else? Edit.
Okay.
Okay. Is every scene like that? No, never is a scene like that. But you got to say it in some order, you know. And then what I'll have my class do is come to me with your favorite sketches. Online, your YouTube sketches, and watch it not once but 10 times so you're not laughing and you're seeing the technique. Then explain to me where the unusual is. What's the base reality there? How did the unusual appear? When did it happen? How did it get justified? And how did they repeat or write jokes off of that?
Yeah, so maybe it'll be helpful to have an example.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do my best not to butcher this.
Okay.
So I was watching Sentimental Lady. So this is one of the house teams at UCB here in Los Angeles. And no, it wasn't them. It was Bangarang, I think. Actually, it was Bangarang.
Yeah.
And
so more cussing. Yeah.
Actually, Bangarang's going to be interesting because we're going to talk about your taxonomy in a moment.
Yeah.
And I think they have an over-representation of one type of of improviser.
I was their first coach when they were a Herald team.
Oh, is that right?
So yeah, I'm responsible.
So well, they're tremendously entertaining. There was this one scene, and it was a grandma, and it was a grandson, and it was her favorite grandson.
Yeah.
And she kept asking him to do these very ridiculous things.
Yeah.
Completely inappropriate, like shave her in inappropriate areas and the whole thing. And so obviously having a grandma make these unusual requests is your unusual thing.
That's the unusual thing.
And
you don't have to go, oh, Dios mío, this is weird. Audience sees that this is weird.
It was, it was. And then the justification was, you're my favorite grandchild.
Oh, yeah.
You're the grandchild couldn't say no because this is his favorite grandparent.
Yes.
They had this bond.
Yeah.
And so the unusual things were sort of, his behavior was justified
Exactly.
in this way. And then the rest of the Bangarang members recognized this. And then they would, what is it when you kind of exaggerate, when you kind of, so like for instance, at one point when he was reluctantly doing this shaving, someone brought candles and put them out and lit them, and someone put on like Marvin Gaye and stuff like that. What would that be called? If heightening?
The heightening, scenic layering, back wall support.
Yes.
Or we use the term blow out the world.
Yeah.
So once you got the game, you're thinking off the back wall, well, if that's the unusual, if that, then what else?
Yes.
Candles, Marvin Gaye. Now that is turning it into clearly a Bangarang scene.
Indeed.
Of a sexy grandma scene, right?
It was, I mean, this obviously, like, I was tickled by this. It was hilarious. It obviously doesn't translate to me describing it in a podcast, but it gives that element. So, okay, so
But the core of that, what you just did in that scene, is in every comedy scene you ever see.
Okay, so if you're on YouTube,
you're
on YouTube, you watch this thing 10 times, you ask your students to do what?
Yeah. Analyze it. And first of all, notice that on YouTube, like I'm promoting, I make money off of YouTube. Any sort of video sketch, the base reality is set immediately with an establishing shot.
I see.
We don't have that formality. We have to literally verbalize and show it. So we do have to take a little step back before we get into that scene. And then the idea is, okay, well, what's the base reality? And then how did the unusual come to play? How did they call out the unusual? I always use the example of Kids in the Hall was the sketch group that I watched, as I was coming up through the system learning. And there's a great sketch called Citizen Kane. And the establishing shot is two friends at a coffee shop. And one of them goes, so the reality base is set just as the camera opens up. You know who they are, where they are. Okay. Somewhere in North America, this is happening right now. Then the unusual is, actually the justification was before the unusual.
Oh,
in
interesting.
Sketch.
Okay.
By going, I saw a great movie by Orson Welles yesterday. I can't remember. You never know how something just sticks on your tongue. That's the justification. Well, give me a few clues and maybe I'll know what it is. Well, he was in it himself. It's his big movie. Citizen Kane? No, that wasn't it. And then the rest of the sketch is established, right? The justification is, you know how you just it's that little annoying little tick that's so universal. But what was wonderful about it is game goes on forever because he just kept going. I don't want to give away Citizen Kane, but if you haven't seen it now, it's too bad for you. There's a Rosebud is the name of the sled. Yes, that's Citizen Kane. And it heightens to the point where the straight man loses it and finally goes, it's Citizen Kane, grabs a fork and stabs him in the hand. Okay. So the weird move is done by the straight man, not the crazy man, right?
I see.
And then that feels like that's the big payoff. Okay. It heightened to the point of absurdity. Then there was a big laugh and then the guy felt bad. Says, great. Now I'm going to have to get what are those things called? You know, with the lights on the top, an ambulance? No. And it goes on. And I saw that, 15 years ago. And I just said, that's the game of the scene.
Yeah.
And the justification made it about that. And that is, you know how we all just do those stupid kind of things. Saw the same exact game with a different justification later that night on the Daily Show when Stephen Colbert was still on. And Jon Stewart threw to our senior correspondent in front of the pyramids of Egypt. And then Stephen Colbert goes, hi, John, I'm here at the famous triangle buildings of Cairo. Because I think those are the pyramids. No, John, they're not.
Right.
And that's ignorance or arrogance, right? So it's a different justification.
I see.
And justification is theme. Justification will get you like in a Herald first beat to second beat. You can do analogous second beats or I don't know if I'm jumping ahead there.
No, it's fine. I mean, I'm just fascinated by the model. So, I've spent 10 years studying what makes things funny.
Yeah, wow. And
one of the interesting things that I think for me was my biggest puzzle.
Yeah.
Was why is improv funny? And I was in 101 or 201. I can't remember which one it was. I think it might have been 201. And I figured it out.
What's that?
So in my world, the language, so you say, the thing that's funny is game.
Yeah.
The justified, unusual thing.
Yeah.
In my world, it's a benign violation. It's something that's wrong yet okay.
Yeah.
something that's threatening yet safe, something that doesn't make sense yet makes sense.
Conflict.
It's simultaneously conflict and comfort.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so to me, what I didn't realize was, benign violation and a justified unusual thing are the same thing. It was a different, and so what we're looking for is a thing that's wrong yet okay.
Yeah.
Right? It's wrong to have your grandma ask you to do these sensitive things, but it's okay because you love each other so much and you trust each other so much.
Yeah.
And so, it's wrong to call the pyramids a triangle building, but it's okay if you're so filled with hubris.
Yeah.
That you're a bit of a dummy. Right?
And that's the beginning. That's the truth.
Yes.
And then from there, you can heighten to the absurdity.
I see.
It can go anywhere. I feel, that's what justification does. Do you think empathy is a connection there?
Well, so to me, I think there are these kind of levers that either that kind of magnify or distance from that. So, people regularly talk about, comedy is tragedy plus time.
Yes.
And so to me though, it's comedy is tragedy plus the right amount of time. That is that what time does is it removes threat. Right. And so, so when you're experiencing tragedy in the moment, it's hard to laugh about it.
Okay.
The passage of time
allows
it to become more benign in my vernacular.
Yeah.
But too much time turns it completely benign. That is that there are certainly bad things that happen in the world that you can't really make jokes about anymore because they're so distant that they don't have the punch anymore.
Exactly.
And so to me, empathy is a different version of that, either closeness or distance.
Yeah.
And so empathy can sort of heighten the excitement and arousal and fun, or too much can actually make it uncomfortable, like cringeworthy.
Yeah.
Comedy.
I noticed that moving.
Highly empathic people struggle with Larry David.
Yes.
Or George Costanza.
Yeah.
It's just too much.
The first TV show I ever did, paid work I did, was a show called Boiling Points on MTV.
Okay. 3
seasons. I shot as a prank show.
Yes.
And it's about getting people so angry. And the premise is if they don't get angry at a certain amount of time, we give them $100. But we want them to get angry.
I see.
And this is the opposite of what I want to do ever in my life.
You want to make people laugh.
Yeah. I don't want this to happen. And I would say the first year I shot that show, it was ulcers. I was really nervous about it. I didn't want to do this, but it's my first job. It's a TV job. I got to take it. By the second year, I was okay with it. Okay. By the third year, it's who do you want me to fuck up? I don't care anymore. I just lost that.
You were an actor? You were one of the people getting people angry?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow.
But it's a show that I did that I would never watch. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I had a big conflict of who am I, man? What am I doing this? And I think that was an empathy thing to me. I made the realization, why use empathy in class to talk about connecting with the audience while you're on stage?
Okay.
In other words, short form, you play short form games like Party Quirks, and you improvise at the audience. You're throwing jokes at the audience. You see them. There is ironic detachment, and you kind of have a nod and a wink to the audience. Long form improv, the reason why I fell in love with it is there's a fourth wall. It's representational theater, and it's real enough that the audience goes, yeah, I know that. I know that, grandma. I know that. So you got them on board, then you hit them with the comedy. Mm-hmm. So the empathy connection is the justification of, how you would do that for your grandma. And now once the audience is on board, then you bring out the Marvin Gaye and the sexy candles, and it's too late for the audience. They're all like, oh, okay. Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, okay. I can't believe you're going there.
All right. I'll laugh at that, but I don't approve of it.
So, all right. So some of this will sound familiar to the audience because I had an improviser and instructor named Jeremy Sender on, and he talked a little bit about the differences between the different chops, IO and ground. So on. Okay. So just to recap. So base reality, the justification, the unusual thing.
Yeah.
If this is true,
Yeah.
then what else is true?
Exactly. Calling out the game and then justifying the game.
That's right.
If that, then what else? If that, then what else? If that, then what else?
And so on.
Yeah.
Now, he brought up your name.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things that you have done is talked about the different kind of styles or types of improvisers.
Oh, yes.
That exist.
Okay, yeah.
Right? So within a scene, people play different roles.
Yes.
Right? And so you've already kind of alluded to this idea of the straight person and the crazy person.
Crazy straight, yeah.
Crazy straight is a common one.
Yeah.
But so talk a little bit about this I call it a taxonomy. I don't know what you call it. What do you call it?
Are you talking about pirate robot?
Pirate, robot, ninja, yes.
Pirate robot ninja.
Yes.
And it's evolved over time. And it's interesting that you call it. We've just wrapped the book. We just finished writing the book.
Congratulations. Is it called
April.
Pirate Robot
Ninja?
Okay.
It didn't step too far from the pond. When I first started teaching, I've discovered that certain people take improv differently. Some people feel the improv. Some people have to think it, and it goes back to left side of the brain, right side of the brain theory of some of us are more analytical with our creativity. Some of us are more impulsive with our creativity. I'm clearly much more impulsive. Let's just get out there and do it. If we fuck up, we learn and we get better.
I bet you I'm on the more analytical side of things.
I think a lot of people feel that at first.
I see.
But then you'll find out. Yeah. And then some of us have to take it in analytically. Like, okay, what's this move? What's this move? What's this move? And the idea behind it is you can't teach improv one way. It's got to be taught differently for different people, or you have to realize it's two things at the same time. I always use the stomach and the head.
Rub your belly, pat your head.
Yeah, that kind of thing. You have to be thinking with both sides of your brain. But in order to do that, you have to know where you're coming from in the first place.
Okay.
So accept that you're analytical, accept that you're impulsive. Now, using those words are big words for comedy folk. And we tend to like funner words like pirate and robot.
Yeah, they're more fun.
Yes, they are a lot more fun. And the audience or class pays attention then, you know. And the idea is shore up your strengths, be good at what you're good at. Don't try to work on the other side without shoring that up. Then once you're comfortable in your world, like for me, once I'm comfortable knowing that I'm a pirate, I can get out there, I have no fear, I bathe in the blood of the game, I'm not worried about that. I don't think, I feel. Now I can focus on my thinking.
I see.
And that's why I said before, it took me 2 years to get game. In the book, we were talking about what was the biggest note you got to say that you were a pirate. And that was, we were working on a swarm show, and we're doing a thing called a mono scene, which is a 30-minute scene with entrances and exits. It took place in a nursing home. I came in thinking it'd be great if I were just a tornado and just twirled around and threw everybody to the ground. And you laughed, and I laughed, but the director said, Kevin Mulaney said, "Did you have to be a tornado in a nursing home?"
Yes.
It's like, oh, I see what you're saying.
Right.
Okay. So that's way overboard pirate, right? It's funny, but it doesn't help anybody.
Okay. So the pirate is emotional, impulsive, fast.
They're grounded. They know where they are. They're fearless.
Okay.
They get out there first. They provide the wind for the sails.
Okay.
And they provide the energy.
I see. Yes.
But if you're all pirate, it's just a terrible show. It's just a whole bunch of tornadoes on stage.
Because that becomes crazy.
Yes. So the other side is the robot side. Okay. And a lot of us tend to be more analytical, especially if you gravitate towards, I feel, UCB style. And once you get into 201 is all robot anyways, because you're thinking.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So the robot analyzes things and decides this is what needs to be done. A robot sees the pattern and creates the pattern, makes the connections, adds all the color for the scene, and just makes it work. The straight man, if you will, the voice of reason, the justifier.
Yeah, indeed. It's interesting when I stumbled. So Jeremy brought this up to me. I hadn't heard about it before that. And so I read some of your writing. And then I started watching.
I got high when I wrote whatever I wrote. So
well, it was good.
Good.
I started watching like these old ASCAT videos.
Yeah.
And trying to pick out who was playing the pirate, who was playing the robot,
sure,
and so on. Now, earlier in the pod, you had talked about backline support.
Yes.
Is that a robot-y thing to do?
It could be either or. Okay. Like my tornado move was a backline move. Backline meaning I came off the back wall. At I.O. it would be coming off the sides. It's that same thing. But the type of support work you do, clearly the robot does a better job of it. The robot frames the game, lets us know what is unusual, and the robot moves it forward.
Okay. And, there's this idea of painting a scene. So someone's like,
Over
there's
here
storm clouds coming in or something like that. Is that a robot-y thing to do?
It can be if you think to do it and you fill out that world.
I see.
Now the trick is, and this is where it gets all confusing, it's because this theory has evolved, is you're not a pirate, a robot, or a ninja. You find out where you are, either the pirate and a robot scale.
Okay.
Are you more impulsive? Are you more analytical?
I see.
Own it. Work on your other side till you find balance,
and then you become
you're the ninja.
Oh, I like it.
So the ultimate improviser, and you should, after 10 years of this, you better be a ninja. You're going to have pirate tendencies, but you know when a scene needs a straight man. You know when a scene needs to go crazy. A ninja comes in, steers the scene where it needs to go, and then leaves when they don't need to be there anymore.
I see.
So that's the idea.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand this. So the pirate is the impulsive, fearless, risk-taking role.
Exactly. Yeah.
The robot is the more analytical, a little colder, calculated, what needs to be fixed or fitted here.
Yes.
And if you're one or the other, you first develop that strength, and then you work on shoring up the weakness.
Yeah. Exactly.
And if you're able to be successful, you become a ninja and you're able to step into those roles as necessary. As
necessary, yeah. That's your goal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's really fascinating. So to me, this connects to some of the things that I really like about improv, not just as a form of comedy, but actually as a kind of model for living.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So to me, first of all, most of our lives is improvisational.
Yeah.
What you and I are doing right now
is,
with the exception of some questions I've written down, is largely improvisational. And so one of the things I really like about improv is the notion of gifting, the notion of, which I think is related, is this idea that we're all supporting actors.
Yeah.
I feel like the ninja seems to will clearly be best at those things.
Yeah.
Right? So a pirate can gift.
Yeah.
A robot can gift, maybe in different ways. And so actually maybe you should describe the background to what gifting is and this idea of this. And I don't know how much UCB is into this. We are all supporting actors. I don't know if that's more of a Chicago thing.
No, we are. But, we're not as weird about it as they are. But
so tell people.
Gifting is, it starts with in 101. The first thing you learn, the first tenet of any sort of improv is yes and. Agree with the reality that you created, yes, and add information. So that's the first thing you learn in 101, first day of class. Then you learn that sometimes no means yes and this and that. Then I think on the third class in 101, you learn about gifting. Gifting means giving your scene partner something to yes and. You never start a scene with, hey, what's up?
Yes.
Because that's just you saying, I have nothing, but I choose to speak first. That's all that is. So what could a gift be? It could be an attitude, emotion. You look angry. Everything okay? That's a good setup for them to yes and that or something to build forward. So once you've given a gift, just like Christmas, it's good to give a gift back. And you start the cycle of giving, and now you're building the rungs of the scene, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But gifts happen all the time. I don't know. I don't want to get into, there are no mistakes. There's only gifts. Have you ever heard that term?
Yes, there are no mistakes. Yes.
So everything that's added into a scene is a gift. There comes a point in time, and I think that's when a ninja can see there are never any mistakes.
I see.
We're all human. And if somebody makes a move and going, well, that's a mistake. That's the first thing you're going to naturally want to do. But then you want to just instinctively go, but that works. That's going to work. I think Will Hines, who's the robot version of this book, does a great job of taking any mistake and turning it into a gift.
Okay.
I think he does a great job with that.
And so how does this idea of we're all supporting actors, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is that if I'm trying to support you and you're trying to support me, we're both elevated.
Yes.
How does that gel with this sort of pirate idea? Like, because I think at first blush it can look like the pirate's like, hey, look at me, the star of the show.
That's such a robot thing to say, Peter. Yeah, that's the negative portion of it, and that's one of the things writing this book with Will. I've heard his example of what he feels a pirate is, and it's much more complimentary than I thought. So the good and bad of a pirate is, yes, you can take over a scene, you can get too big, you can miss things, you can throw mistakes left and right, but also a pirate is they want to be liked. It's a very democratic mentality of, it's like, come on, right? Everybody, come on. Never leave a man behind kind of thing.
I see.
That's the good side of the pirate. That's the bad side of the pirate. Just like the good side of the robot is we always build on that. The bad side is not moving anything forward and just only sticking to the pattern, and not adjusting, to where the scene wants to go. And I think that's something I learned through Will. Is like, yeah, there's good and bad on both sides of those. And that's what I mean about shoring up your pirate. Like, I was a tornado a lot in scenes, so I need to learn when to be a tornado and when not to be, when to use my power for good, in that sense. So that's what I mean by shoring up your side. Shore up that side. Then once you feel comfortable in that world, then look at the other and see, how can I start doing elements of that? Like for me, my robot work came all off the back wall.
Okay.
That's how I learned to do that, just a little bit at a time until I felt totally comfortable with it. And now I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just on stage going where I need to go.
Well, I actually hate using sports metaphors, but there's like a lot of them that's connected to this, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about the Herald has rules in the same way that basketball has rules.
Yes.
And they have players in the same way that they both have players,
exactly.
And they're interacting and so on. And, you were talking about with reps, with experience, you don't have to think as much. And it's the same thing,
exactly.
that when you first start doing anything, you have to think about it, and then at some point it becomes automatic. Yeah. And I think what you're describing is probably you're at this place where you step out there and you don't have to think about what you're doing. You're just reading and reacting.
Yeah. There was a great I used to say this all the time, and I think it was a disservice to my students. It's like, how do I get good at it? As good as you, Billy. And it's like, well, first of all, that's not going to happen. Second of all, put in your 10,000 hours.
Yes.
And it's like, I would say that all the time, and it felt like a bailout. Like, I don't want to tell you just put in 10,000 hours. Because I remember Amy Poehler was our first director on The Swarm. And she said, how many Heralds have you done? And I think we said about 100, 200. It's like, great, you got 500 more to go.
Yes,
and all of us went, oh, boo. But she was right. You want to get to that point. Then,
can I interrupt
for
a second?
Sure.
Just so you can sound like less of an asshole than me.
Yeah.
I recently had this interaction with a student. I got invited to do this, I got invited to fly out and do this like amazing thing in Dubai.
Yeah.
And the student was like, oh, that must be nice. And I said, you know what it is?
Yeah.
I said, do you want to know how to do that? And she said, yeah. I said, put in 20 hard years.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I was trying to be cheeky, but I came off as a jerk.
Yeah.
But it's hard to get around that. If you want to become elite at anything, you
put
have
in the
to
time.
You have to put in years of practice. I mean,
and because of that, I think this is the story that I remember it as. We were doing some sort of improv festival panel discussion, and Ian Roberts there. Now, Ian Roberts is the ultimate robot cyborg pirate man.
Okay.
He's an incredible teacher, actor, writer. And this came up, and I feel I call it Ian Roberts' 5 days of improv. And it's like, if this is what you want to do, and I say this at the end of every one of my classes, instead of me telling you 10,000 hours, this is how you do it.
Okay.
5 days a week, you do improv.
Okay.
One day, you take a class at the school of your choice that you wish to learn their style.
Okay.
Day 2, you keep seeing those shows, because after a while, people quit seeing shows.
Okay.
It's like you need to keep studying and keep watching all the different kinds of shows. 3 is get a practice group outside of class. Start practicing with people. Start putting in scene after scene after scene so you can do 1,000 scenes and not think about it.
Right.
Day 4 is get involved in the indie jam, whatever you want to call that.
Okay.
A lot of that stuff is not great, but it gets you your chops.
Yes.
So you're not worried about when you're on stage. You just become natural at it.
Okay.
5, Don't do anything. Stay home and study. Read, study. Right now, I was telling my class, I've been on this for 2 years. I've been on an English comedy kick.
Okay.
Because I was embarrassed that I knew nothing about a little bit of Fry and Laurie.
Uh-huh.
So I started watching everything on them, on the YouTubes. And then that led to all these great English shows. And it's like, study, study, study. Because no matter what comedy you come up with, it's probably been done before.
Yeah.
You're just doing a different version of that. And then after that, that's 5 days a week.
Okay.
And the other 2 days, go to Europe. Explore, get away from it so you have something to draw back. And that's me talking to all those kids that were in high school groups, that are in college groups, that are now at UCB. I'm saying, get outside of improv, because you don't want to just do improv for improvisers doing improv. You want to do improv that has empathy connections to real people.
Yeah.
So make sure that you're a real person.
Yeah, you have to be paying attention to what's going on in the world and living and experiencing.
Yeah.
That's great. I think I think that the average I think you're doing a great service to your students by saying that, because the better someone is at improv, sport, science, whatever it might be, they make it look so easy that it doesn't reveal what goes on behind the scenes.
And the other thing is, if you want to talk about pirate and robot, robots need this. Robots need that written down so they know, do this day, do this day. As a pirate, I didn't know that. I just said yes to everything.
I see.
And I just threw myself out there. And I probably hurt myself quite a bit doing that, but that's how I learned to go up through that system.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. So you just finished a book about this. That's exciting.
Yeah.
What first book?
Yeah, it's Will's second or third.
Okay.
And he came up, it's my theory. But he said, you should write a book about it. It's like, I've tried. I get into writing and I just lose. It says, okay, I will write it with you.
Okay.
And it's just been an amazing experience to have a robot help a pirate, because it took us 3.
I assume you talk about that in the book, about how
I think we do. Yeah. It turned into almost like an adventure series. We talk analytically up front and say what the theory is. Then we say, fuck it, let's do it like a pirate would. We're in a dojo in the mountains of Tibet, and we kind of make it more fantasy realm and just comedy involved in there. But each one is like, we talk about the 4 pillars of improv, which we created. Fire, what was it? Fire? Well, I don't want to give it all away. Earth, wind, and fire.
Got it.
Water. Water is editing. What is fire? You know what? I'll have to read the book.
That's fine. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you had a major insight or breakthrough, either personally or professionally or theoretically,
while doing the book?
Yeah,
big times. For me, I learned how to write a book, which is good. The discipline that it takes,
indeed,
and how it's okay. And this is, again, Will did a great job. Is like, we went back and forth for 3 months, I just spewed everything I knew and all the stories and stuff like that, until it kind of centered into what the book wanted to be. And he tenderly pushed it into that point.
I see.
So that taught me one thing. And then his point of view of what he thinks a pirate is.
Wait, what did it teach you exactly?
About what, the book? Or?
No, about that process of you throwing everything out and him kind of corralling it.
That's okay. For me, it was always, I'm all over the place here. I can't do this. And then I would just stop.
I see.
He's like, no, that's okay. Just keep, it's like whirling down into a drain. Mm-hmm. Throw it all out there, because you don't know where it's going to be. So, which is hilarious that I would not know that as an improviser, to not write the book improvisationally.
Oh, interesting.
Until we found where it wanted to go.
Yeah.
So that's something I learned. And then, like, the other thing is his point of view of what he really thinks a pirate is, and his point of view of a robot. And it's like, comedy is subjective. We all have different points of view about it. We play together on the Smokes all the time. So, I love playing with him. And it's not like, I don't want to say anything was wrong. It's like, I never thought of it that way. I guess that does make sense. Mm-hmm. Like, one thing that he brought up is pirates are very grounded. They always know who they are and where they are in the scenes, because they feel it. And this is something that Ian Roberts taught, flash memory. If a scene feels like something in your real life, you use that to keep you in that scene.
Okay.
And to come up with other ideas. It's like, it's a very pirate move. That's feeling the scene as opposed to thinking the scene.
I want to talk about some other things. I want to ask one other thing that I like a lot about, you can tell I love UCB.
Yeah.
This idea of, and I may describe it wrong, performing at the top of your intelligence.
Yes.
Is that the right way to say it?
That's the right way to say it. Yeah.
I love that concept.
Yeah.
So can you talk about how you talk about it, how you teach it?
It is to simplify it, because honestly, when I first heard it, it's like, I'm smart. It's like, no, it's not about you. That's not what it's about, Billy. Calm down. And it's like, no, it's about know what your character knows, and don't know more and don't know less. Mm-hmm. An example would be, if you're a 7-year-old girl, know what a 7-year-old girl knows and act accordingly. Don't know what a 30 or 40-year-old improviser knows. Know what she knows and play it honestly, so that you can react honestly, not as an improviser.
Right. It's like the ceiling
exactly
that you should not exceed.
And on the other side is, you don't have a medical degree, so you can't be a doctor, but you know, if you're playing a bad doctor, not to go, I'm a bad doctor. What's this? A syringe? And just throwing it across the room.
Yes.
You play it to the top of that bad doctor's intelligence. Do they know they're a bad doctor? Do they ever admit it? No.
Yes.
And this is how old I am. I use references from MASH.
Okay. Yeah.
And, you got it, but nobody, everybody else in the audience, in the class, blank stares. Major Frank Burns is an excellent example of a bad doctor. He's a bad doctor, but he never admits it, right? So it's like, if you can get yourself lost in your character and know what your character knows, then you will react honestly as that character. And it's easier to hear the unusual that way, as a character, not an improviser. Mm-hmm. And the difference is talking to each other in a scene as opposed to talking at a scene.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
You know, again, I'm always looking for, these rules of improv, again, are rules for life.
Yes.
So that notion of top of your intelligence, I think, is obviously critical for living life.
No,
in this sense of knowing your limits and recognizing other people's limits. It can make you for example, I think that idea can make you a more compassionate person.
Yeah.
For instance, like just talking about ignorance. Yeah. In that way.
The best worst note I got a long time ago, I don't remember who gave it to us.
The best worst note?
Yeah. It's like, if you want to be a good improviser, be a good person. And like, I went, I don't know. I guess so.
That's,
and it's like, oh, I see what you're saying. In the scene, do what a good person would do in a scene. Try to play that character to the top of that character's intelligence. Don't ironically detach. Stay with it.
Yeah, as you said, lean in.
Yeah, lean in. Yeah.
So I want to talk about a couple other things before we wrap. So you do voiceover work.
Yeah.
So you're on a show, Cartoon Network's Steven Universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think you're the first person I've talked to who does voiceover work, and I'm just curious about that. As a guy who thinks he has a good voice.
You know what? It's not.
It's not about voice.
It's not, because there are so many good voices out there. Okay. And you do have a lovely voice. I didn't mean it that way. It's about character, I think. And I guess that's in my world. There's many different portions. There are people who do movie in a world, those kind of voices.
Yes, right.
There are people who play big characters. There are people who just play themselves. There's, anime characters that can, people who talk like anime characters. So you got to find your world in there. I tend to when I do commercials and stuff, my voiceovers tend to be people like, that voice sounds familiar. Is that somebody famous? But it's not.
I see.
I've gotten that several times.
Yeah. Who would someone mistake you for, perhaps?
Oh, I got John Goodman. I did Candy. I've done several Candy for what is it? Family Guy. I played John Candy a couple times. Those are the obvious choices. Oh, I'm trying to think of his name. He played Putty in Seinfeld.
Yes, I know.
John F.X. Warburton.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually was up for a series of commercials for Carl's Jr. And I did it, and I recorded all the commercials, and then they wanted me to come back to do ADR, which is to re-loop some stuff.
Okay.
And then when I went in, I heard his voice. So they used me for scratch, which is like, let's just get a voice in here to fill out the words and do all the acting and use your improv to kind of get the attitude behind it. Then he came in and voiced over me.
Voicing over the voiceover.
Exactly. So he heard me as an example, then read it his way. Then he couldn't do it for some money reasons. So they had me come back in and redo the whole thing.
No way.
And it's just like, oh, I see how it is.
So do you like doing voiceover work?
Oh, yeah. It's so much easier. I get to sit. I can take my shirt off.
You can do multiple takes.
Yeah. You usually don't, oddly enough. I do more takes on camera than I do
that's interesting.
in voiceover. I don't do as much of them as I used to. I think you go through, like LA, it's peak and valleys. So right now, I'm starting to get up to the peaks again, starting to get a little more work. So it comes and goes. I was a voice of Jamerson Radio for a while, which is just interviewing people on air, which is just as myself. I would like to be better with my character work. I don't think I'm as good as I think I am.
Okay.
When I see myself, I went, I got to do better.
So what is, tell me, I think this is, I have a lot of questions about this. I'll try to keep it brief. So first of all, there's a surprising number of big names who end up doing voiceover work.
That's happened within the last 10 years.
And is that because of the brand and the draw? Or is it just simply that
money?
Is just that Gene Hackman and whoever, George Clooney, whatever, these people recognize the voices, they have an affinity because George Clooney's in it, it must be good. Is that the thinking?
Yeah, there's that spokesperson type thing, where if you get a famous name attached to it, that's a big deal.
But even for movies like these, there's a bunch of cartoon movies that they hire very big name actors.
Big time. Yeah. It's annoying as a voiceover audience. It's not, and it's also a double-edged sword because those movies aren't popular. They wouldn't be as popular as they were if they didn't have those big names.
I see.
So that's the selling point of these movies. Talk about Scratch. I did Scratch for Smallfoot that came out.
What is Scratch again?
Scratch means, you go in, you see the video, and you do the voices, and you kind of act them out. They'll get improv people to do it, to act out characters of where they think they're coming from, improvise a little bit off of it, but how do you read this character?
I see.
And then they would then transfer that over to, that's great. Now we'll let Danny DeVito do it.
And then he listens to this stuff and gets a feel for it.
Yeah.
That's not the only place that happens.
Oh, really?
So there's this really wonderful book called The Song Machine. This guy, John Seabrook, I believe. There's a New Yorker article that gives you a glimpse into this and tells a story about this woman who helps create many of Rihanna's songs.
Yeah.
And she goes into the booth. They have a beat. They have a little nugget of an idea, and then she just starts riffing. So there's like a Rihanna song where she's like, na, 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 na.
Yeah.
This woman came up with that on the fly.
Yeah. That's exactly what we do.
And they sort of structure a song, then they write it.
Yeah.
And then they give it to Rihanna, and then she makes it a Rihanna song because it's Rihanna.
Yeah.
So it's not the only place you see that, but
that's so interesting. Yeah. That's the way it is.
Huh. And okay, so
you also know voiceovers for movies changed. A lot of this happened. There was a big strike about 10, 15 years ago, commercial strike.
Yes.
And at that time, there used to be a lot of voiceover artists for movies that would do the literal in a world where this. Now you don't see that anymore. It's mainly just shots of the movie with a few little things. And it was because of that strike years ago. It's like, well, we can't hire video. We just have to show the movie.
I didn't know that. And
it's like, oh, this is better because now we don't have to pay for a VO and this is much more interesting.
Yeah, I know there's some research on these sort of like how trailers become a little mini story.
Yeah.
And you build, you transport people in a minute, what I mean, into this other world. And you don't need someone to say in another world because you're looking at a screen and it's clearly another world.
That's the whole idea.
Yeah.
The only reason why I knew that is because I know a guy who used to write movie trailers.
Oh, is that right? His world has changed.
Yeah, his world changed.
So the voiceover work, so when you say doing characters, you say you want to get better at it.
Yeah, I mean, you can always want to get better at certain things.
Okay, so you already talked about how to get better as an improviser. You take a class, you watch shows, you get a practice group, you do indie jams, you stay home and study. If you want to get better as a voiceover actor doing characters,
I'll watch cartoons.
Okay.
Turn off the volume. And fill up the that's one way.
Okay. By the way, you're making people like really envious about your like they're hating their jobs right now. They're like, this guy's job is turning off cartoons.
I gotta watch cartoons, guys. I'm sorry. You think this is fun for me?
It's hard work. I know,
I gotta do it. Yeah. You find where you're good at in your voiceover. So I'm more of a ADR, like a vocal mirroring certain people or something like that. I don't have good original character content. So that's something that I want to work on.
I see.
So when I see a character, I was like, well, how can I change that character up a little bit?
Okay.
There's so many cartoons right now.
Yeah,
There's
so you turn
many.
the volume off and you watch and you fill in the words and you create a character and
Exactly.
kind of thing.
And the other thing is, just drive and talk to yourself.
Is that
just
right?
Start playing with voices.
Okay.
It's weird because like in improv, I don't do that. I'm a big fan of don't create a character and hide behind your character.
Okay.
Be you with the parts of your character and, you are the character. There are times when you need to project some sort of big facade, but not all the time.
I see.
Whereas for this, you need to project that big facade. So it's a different approach.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I think Groundlings does a good job of creating good character facades.
I see.
I think that's their talent.
Yeah, that's really fun. All right, so 2 questions, and then so I'm actually going to talk to Matt Walsh
Ooh.
in a future podcast. Is there anything I should know? Anything I should ask? Is there can you give me some inside fun thing to bring up that might surprise him?
Oh, I don't know. He's a fantastic teacher. I've had classes with him a long time ago. I was his AD on some of his shows that he put up on stage. Oh, what was he did a show. I'm trying to think. His first show that he put up at UCB was about a mall. You know what? I can't remember.
That's fine.
That would be hard to call him out on that.
Well, I'm definitely going to ask him about Pirate Robot Ninja.
You know, I don't know if he was the one, but somebody at one of the UCB4 was in San Francisco at a festival, and I just heard this through second people that somebody says, "No, the UCB theory on Pirate Robot Ninja is I don't think that's we don't teach that." Oh, I'm pretty sure you do. And it's like at first I went, "Uh-oh, I'm in trouble." Then it's like, "No, I'm not. I'm going to keep doing that."
Well, and also here's the thing is, these are people teaching improvisation.
Yeah.
And so they can't get too mad at you.
No. And it's not UCB. I make a point to teach UCB and always say, this is my point of view of teaching. And all teachers have to have some sort of philosophy,
I have the same thing. I teach this core MBA marketing management course.
Yeah.
Every business school in the world teaches this course.
Yeah.
We all sort of teach the same things.
But how do you reach out to them?
That's right. What kind of language do I use? How do I frame these things?
Yeah.
But the content is still.
Yeah. I mentioned this when I first came up with this back in New York. I mentioned Michael Delaney earlier, and I said, it's pirate and robot. And it's like, that's stupid. And it's like, no, it's not. It's really smart. I'm going to do one. It's called Machine and Monster. You can't do that. This is my philosophy.
Well, I'm glad you wrote a book then.
Yeah. So I won.
Yes. Last question. I'm sure you have an answer to this. What are you reading, watching, or listening to that really stands out? Not just good, but is great.
I am fascinated with, I've discovered over the last year, classical music lectures. Listening to, over Christmas vacation, I went and watched the Goldberg variations on a real harpsichord. I got into, I'd say
I don't understand. Classical music lectures?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I jumped ahead. On Audible, they have a lecture series.
Oh.
And right now I'm in the process of listening to the 30 greatest symphonies, and the story behind each one and how it was put together. And this same lecturer also did one. He's the same lecturer that does all the musical lectures on audible.com. Okay. If you go there, he did just the history of music, and it takes forever, but it's a great thing to listen to. And I always listen to it before I go to sleep. But what I discovered is structure of symphonies and songs. It's very similar to improv long form structure. In other words, everything is communal. Everything's the same. And I was listening to him talk about in his previous lecture about fugues, and a fugue starts out with an intro and then it breaks off into 3 elements and then it comes back and then it breaks off, and I yelled out loud, "That's a herald!" I'm the first person to think this out. So it's like, I'm very excited about how structures, they're communal in different art forms.
I see.
I think the whole idea of being creative, the pirate robot thing is not just improv, it's in everything. There are painters who are more pirate and painters who are more robotic or something along those lines.
I see.
And then on top of that, history, hardcore history.
It's called hardcore history?
Yeah, it's called hardcore history.
Oh, this is a podcast,
yeah,
right?
podcast.
Oh, yeah, I heard about this.
Yeah.
I have not listened to it, but it's the story is like the guy's not really a historian. He's just sort of a smart guy, right?
Yeah, but he's read every book on it, and he's a great storyteller.
I see.
I would highly recommend and it's like each podcast is 4 hours long, and he'll have a 7 or 8 part series on World War I.
That's incredible.
And it just really goes in depth, and it really opened me up to all these there's another guy, Michael Duncan, who does a podcast on revolutions.
Okay.
Just revolutions throughout history.
Huh.
And he started with the English Revolution, or the Civil War with Oliver Cromwell. And I just wrapped up listening to the French Revolution. That's some
it's crazy
up shit.
Yeah.
That makes everything make more sense now as to how crazy that was and how long it took and how just nightmarish it was.
Yeah, amazing. Well, Billy, you certainly are walking your talk. It sounds like
Hopefully,
you are, as you said, going the other 2 days go to Europe.
Yes.
And if you're listening to lectures on symphonies and learning about
and that's just because I've reached the point of my age where my earlier life, I would think I'm boring, but now I just love this stuff.
Yeah.
I think Del Close, godfather of improv, said, wit is not something you have, it's something you earn, and you earn it every day.
I see.
If you're on stage and somebody references something that you don't know, you damn right I'm going to go home and Wikipedia that, and I will not get caught off stage again.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Billy, thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
this was fun.
It was really a lot of fun.
Yeah. And you're close to Chick-fil-A, so this really works out for all of us.
That's great.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to visit petermcgraw.org for more information about our guest, show notes, and social media links. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with others. Join Dr. Peter McGraw next week for another fun, fascinating conversation on I'm Not Joking.
Yo.